Video 8 of the Broken Spears. Now, we were recalling in the last lecture that for some reason many people allied themselves with the Spanish, particularly those that were living in the Lake of Texcoco for generations prior to the rise of the Aztec Empire. Now, also, many symbolisms arise out of the narrative that helps us discern the importance of Aztec dancing today. And the first one is the warrior dance massacre that happens on the eve of the commemoration of Huitzilopochtli. Now, we know that this warrior dance happens from various sources, so the factual event, we know it must have taken place. And what we also know is that it was a planned massacre, where Pedro de Alvarado sees an opportunity to perform the same strategy which they applied against the Cholulans. In the case of the Cholulans, they were tricked because the Cholulans were called into a holy battle place where in times of negotiations everybody went without weapons, and therefore the Cholulans are called. The Tlaxcalans also arrived, but then out of nowhere the Spanish appear and begin massacring the unarmed Cholulans. Similar thing and an opportunity appears because while Moctezuma had been ransomed in the city of Tenochtitlan, Cortés leaves, and then Pedro de Alvarado is given an opportunity in which in his military mentality he should take advantage of, and that is that the Mexica need to perform the religious ceremonies, and on those days on May, people wanted to perform the ceremony for the god Huitzilopochtli, where this is a very important scene because here is where we find many of the important cultural aspects of Aztec society that do not appear in other accounts, and that is the military hierarchy of the Aztecs. The description is that people, first of all, if you read the chapter, you realize that it was involved a whole preparation cycle. Women were fasting for a month, they're grinding different seeds from different plants, and they are building an effigy of Huitzilopochtli, which they make into kind of a live size figure, and it is clearly an agricultural celebration. Next to the effigy of Huitzilopochtli, they place the drums, and all of the warriors dance in circles around this drum. This is also very important because the closer you're dancing to the drums means the higher you are in the hierarchy of the Aztec military. How did you achieve mobility within the Aztec military is also very important to discern, which is, and they tell us in these accounts, that the Aztecs rose in military hierarchies by the number of people, warriors, that they captured alive and brought back to the capital of Mexico, Tenochtitlan. Now, in some accounts, misinterpretations, I'm not part of those people that believe these interpretations. The idea is that because of the Flower Wars, the Aztecs went and captured people and sacrificed them for the gods Huitzilopochtli. But in my interpretation, and this is also intertwined with the present day culture of box in Mexico and Aztec dancing, is that what the Aztec warriors were doing was they would go out to these places, engage in battle, submit people without hurting them, and they would bring them back to Tenochtitlan to fight in front of everybody. Okay, so but the ceremony of Huitzilopochtli is not such case. The commemoration of Huitzilopochtli was an agricultural celebration. And in this agricultural celebration, what the warriors did was dance, and they danced around in circles, displaying their hierarchical achievements through what they perceived to be the honorable way to fight, which was not sacrificing people, but which was engaging them in battle in fair means. Okay, now this is why we have to understand that in this fertility ceremony, the ancient meaning of blood and the symbolisms and images of rituals around fertility are the most important set of cultural data that we have to assess the claim of Aztec cannibalism and Aztec human sacrifice. We should add to that the story of Huitzilopochtli himself. And what does Huitzilopochtli mean? Huitzilopochtli means left-handed hummingbird, meaning this is a human whose natural animal spirit was related to the hummingbirds. We know that hummingbirds are not meat eaters, and also we know that hummingbirds are very small birds. So my first here kind of take is, how can we think that people that follow and give great importance to a bird such as the hummingbird, how would those people be sacrificing humans or would be eating the meat of humans if clearly their deity is a vegetarian bird? So that's kind of a very important part of the analysis. Second part is that Huitzilopochtli, we know, seems to have been a man. That is at least how Fray Bernardino de Sahagún has described him. Here we have many data that allow us to see kind of the mixture of historical truth and myth. We have many descriptions written in the 16th and 16th century. This is one from the Códice Borbónico. Here's Huitzilopochtli. Here is Huitzilopochtli in the Códice Ramírez. Here is two versions of Huitzilopochtli in the Códice Tejeranio Ramensis too. Now, from the Códice Florentino, Sahagún is very explicit about describing this god Huitzilopochtli, and Sahagún writes, Huitzilopochtli was like another Hercules. This was a man that for his strength and ability in war, many Mexicans highly regarded at the time of his death, and when he died, they regarded him as a god. Therefore, we should keep this in mind. These are other images of other gods, such as Tezcatlipoca, Tezcatlipoca Rojo, Tezcatlipoca Azul, basically Tezcatlipoca Red, Tezcatlipoca Blue, Tezcatlipoca Red, Tezcatlipoca Blue, and Tezcatlipoca Black. The point of me talking about Tezcatlipoca is that actually we have two very, very important, I guess, dichotomies here, which is deities that resemble natural entities and humans that become deities along with their animal spirit, which is such as the case as Huitzilopochtli. Now, Huitzilopochtli, as the record of their own Aztec history tells us, Huitzilopochtli, his original name was Meshi. Meshi was the leader of this nomadic tribe. Meshi communicated with the gods, with this particular god, Tetzahuetl. Tetzahuetl communicated to Meshi in dreams. May I just recall that's why I have you think about dreams since the beginning of the class. Here we have a historical record where Meshi communicates in dreams with Tetzahuetl, and Tetzahuetl tells him you must begin your migration. In these mythical stories, this is where Tetzahuetl would be telling Meshi that he would settle his people in the place that he would see an eagle defeating a serpent and eating it while being on the top of a nopal, of a cactus, which is present-day Mexican national symbol and flag. Now, what's relevant is that in this migration, when this migration begins, this mythical moment, Meshi dies in the way. How do we know Meshi dies in the way? Well, because the narrative tells us this. Here, in their Códice, what we know is that Meshi dies in the way, and the people decide to carry his bones. And therefore, el bulto mortuario, the mortuary bundle, is carried, and therefore that would end up being most likely the most important treasure of the Aztecs, the mortuary bundle of Meshi. Now, This is kind of very important because these mortuary temples mortuary bundles are very relevant, and we find them in various codices. The highlight part of the situation here is that these are the bones of the god Huitzilopochtli. Now, the point is that when the moment that Mekshi dies, he dies and he is renamed. He is renamed because he is resurrected with the name Huitzilopochtli Tetzahueteotl. And like that, Mekshi turning into Huitzilopochtli is embedded into the collective consciousness of these nomadic tribes. These nomadic tribes are the ones that end up arriving to the lakes of Texcoco and are given those swampy areas in the middle of the lake. Once they become emperors of the region, they rewrite the story and they leave us this record telling us the story of Mekshi dying on the way and turning into Huitzilopochtli, which we find here in the Codice of Azcatitlan. Here, according to the narrative, is Mekshi is here, Mekshi dies, ascends to the place of transformations, and then is reborn as Huitzilopochtli, the left-handed hummingbird. Okay. It's also interesting to collect all these creation stories with the stories and the narratives of these codices with the information that is left to us in stone monuments. Now, Aztec monumental architecture is very, very symbolic and full of dates and names. For example, this is the base of the Coatlicue. In the base of the Coatlicue, and I'll show you the Coatlicue in a second, we have here the date of one rabbit. Okay, the base of Coatlicue also displays a goddess, a goddess. Okay, these are the arms, the torso, the legs, the open legs. We have symbols of femininity. Okay, and we also have skulls around the base of the Coatlicue. Who is the Coatlicue and why is the date of one rabbit relevant? Well, the Coatlicue, according to the creation story, is the mother of Huitzilopochtli. Who is the Coatlicue? Coatlicue is no other than, for some of us today, the Virgin of Guadalupe. We don't have time for the entire analysis of the symbolism displayed here in the goddess of Mexico, the mother goddess of Mexico, Coatlicue. She is today in the Mexican Museum of Anthropology. But basically, being the mother of Huitzilopochtli, she is a fundamental part of this story. Now, Coatlicue had many sons and daughters, among the most famous of all daughters, which is the Coatlicue. This is the head of the Coatlicue. In the head of the Coatlicue, in the base of the head of the Coatlicue, we also have this date, one rabbit. One rabbit transforms to the calendar, or our Christian calendar, to the year 1142. Okay, so this is important because we have the head of the Coyolxauhqui and the head of the Coatlicue, on the base of the Coatlicue, telling us this important date of one rabbit. Now, why is this relevant? We'll continue that in our next lecture series.